Good morning, good morning, and welcome to another Saturday of the Lord's Prayer. I'm excited to continue our relationships topic. We are going to get into God and Abram, and this morning it's going to be a lot of information, but I am just excited for what God is doing, how he's using us in this season, how he's trying to build relationships with us, how he wants us to build relationships with others. We need to be better at our relationships, we at our friendships, at our spousal relationships, our children, whatever it is. We just need to be better. So let's go right on in and get started. So last week we spoke about Noah and Noah's relationship with God. And when we think about Noah in relationship with Abram, Noah is essentially Abram's great grandfather, right? In Genesis 11:26 it says, "When Terah had lived 70 years, he fathered Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Noah fathered Shem. Shem fathered Terah, and Terah fathered Abram." And this is how Noah becomes his great grandfather. Now, when we read Genesis chapter 12, the first three verses, they start and they say, "Now the Lord said to Abram, go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you, and I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." Those first two sentences, God essentially chooses Abram to be the person that he will use to restore the people to himself. He promises Abram land when he says, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you." And then he promises him people, and he says, "I know I will make of you a great nation." And then he promises blessings. And that sentence continues and says, "And I will bless you and make your name great so that you will be a blessing," right? He will become a blessing for people to know God through them. So Abraham went as the Lord told him, and Lot went with him. Abraham was um, Abraham was 25, 75, 25, 75 years old when he departed from Haran. And Abram took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all the possessions that they had gathered, and the people that they had acquired in Haran, and they set out to go to the land of Canaan. I looked up the name Canaan. I researched it. I looked up the definition, the meaning of Canaan. And the name Canaan refers to the son of Ham, the son of Noah, as well as the descendants of Canaan who settled the land west of the Jordan. Right? No big deal. Here's what's important. The Hebrew for this name is pronounced Canaan. It is derived from the root Kena, meaning to be brought down by a heavy load. By extension, this word can also mean subdue or humble. So God uses Noah to have a new beginning for the world, and then in turn uses Abram to first go to a land whose name means to humble or subdue. This is the person that God establishes a covenant with. right? He establishes a covenant with Abram, and he sends him to a land whose name means subdue or humble. God, I know we like to say God is funny and how he works and how he moves in the things that he does, like he's the biggest comedian of all. But God essentially, after wiping the whole world out after the flood, the people that would begin to populate this earth, he wanted them in a place and in a posture of humility. He wanted them in a place that they would be subdued, they would be submitted to him, right? And Abram was that person that God was going to use to get people to be in a place of humility, not just a physical location, but a posture of humility. Abram was going to be the one to restore that to him because people had gone crazy, they were wicked, they were sinning left, right, and center. Not to say that we're sinless now, but he was going to use Abram for that very purpose. Second Chronicles 7:14 says, "If my people who are called by my name humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and heal their land." Abram was probably one of the most humble person. Well, not the most, but one of the most humble people in the Bible. In his humility, God heard from heaven at every request that he ever made, at any intercession that he ever made, and he favored him. Why do we have such a hard time humbling ourselves to those in authority? Why do we have such a hard time humbling ourselves to our pastors, our supervisors, our bosses, our parents? It's in humility that God will bless you. It's in humility that God will establish a covenant with you. How many of us are even willing to obey an order to leave our home place to go to a foreign land, to go to a foreign place where we know no one, where we know nothing, where we have no idea what it's going to look like, what it's going to be like? But because we have the word of the Lord with us, are we still going to take that word, hold on to it, and go? Abram humbled himself before the Lord, and the Lord kept a covenant that he would have many offspring. So going on, Abram, Sarai, and Lot. Lot was the child of one of Abram's brothers. So they gathered all that they had and they set out for Canaan. Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." So he built there an altar to the Lord who had appeared to him. Abraham built the altar, which essentially signifies his desire to consecrate himself fully to God and commemorate the encounter that he had with God in that space. Right? So let's say, for an example, if the bathroom is your space where you have encounters with God, whether it's in the shower, on the toilet, just in the bathroom, just being there, you build an altar there to commemorate the encounter that you have with God, recognizing that this is a space that God meets you, recognizing that this is a space that you can come to and offer up your worship, offer up your sacrifice of praise, offer up whatever it is to God, right? Some of you, it may be your car, it may be your prayer closet, it may be your kitchen. Who knows? But that is your space where you have encountered God and you come there to sacrifice your praise and your worship. This is why Abram built an altar in this space, or I should say, in that place. How many of us can say that we have actually encountered God in such a way that we would be willing to make that sacrifice, to establish a space, to say, God, I will meet you here because I know that you've met me here before. I know what you've done for me in this space before. I know what you've said to me time after time in this place before. Like for me, my car is my altar. It's my sanctuary. That's where I worship. That's where I intercede. That's where I journal. That's where I can do any and every thing offering it up to God. That's our space. Then Abram and Sarai left and went to Egypt because there was a famine. Because of her beauty, he asked her to lie and say that she's his sister so his life could be spared. Pharaoh found out, of course, and essentially kicked them out of Egypt. Because the Lord brought affliction against Pharaoh. Why? Because he took Sarah as his wife. He thought that it was Abram's sister. Okay, so they leave Egypt. Abram now settles in Canaan, or I should say Canaan. And as he settles in Canaan, in Genesis chapter 13, it reads, the Lord said to Abram, after Lot had separated from him, lift up your eyes and look from the place where you are, northward, southward, eastward, westward. For all the land that you see, I will give to you and to your offspring forever. I will make your offspring as the dust of the earth, so that if one can count the dust of the earth, your offspring also can be counted. Arise, walk through the length and the breadth of the land, for I will give it to you. So Abram moved his tent and came and settled by the oaks of Mamre, which are at Hebron, and there he built an altar to the Lord. Again, we see God promising Abram offspring, that he will give him offspring in such a large amount that it can't even, like, you can count the dust of the ground. It'll be more than that. He reminds him of the bountiful offspring that he's going to receive, right? So now God told Adam and Eve, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it. God also told Noah and his wife, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it. But then he tells Abram he will make his offspring like the dust of the earth, which is so many that you can't even count. And his wife Sarai is barren. So you mean to tell me Adam and Eve go be fruitful and multiply, create plenty of offspring. Noah and his wife go be fruitful, multiply, subdue the earth, fill it up. They had the ability to produce children. Sarai is essentially barren, not able to carry, not able to be with child. And yet you still make a promise. I'm just saying. You still make a promise that he will have offspring galore, like in plentiful numbers. Okay. So when Abram realizes that he's getting older, he says to God, I guess I'll have to make a member of my household an heir because I have yet to see an offspring. And God reminds him in Genesis 15, verse 5, look toward heaven and number the stars. If you are able to number them, so shall your offspring be. And then he believed God and started counting the stars. Once again, God reminded him, I am going to give you many offsprings. I'm a man of my word, and I'm going to tell it to you again. I'm going to confirm it for you one more time. Okay. 3 times so far, God has confirmed his word to Abraham, and we know what it feels like when we get a word 5, 10, 15 years ago, maybe even 5 days ago. You know what it feels like when you get that word and you keep getting similar words and you have yet to see it come to pass. It can feel frustrating. It can feel, did I hear God? Was the man or the woman of God correct? Did they hear God? Maybe they were a false prophet. They don't know what they were talking. Like, all of the thoughts are thoughting in your head. They're running through your head. All the thoughts are happening, and you just feel at a loss because you haven't seen the move or the hand of God as of yet. But you know that it's coming because you keep hearing that word. When we hear about Abram and his story, and we think of his obedience, of even later on in the story, when you think of his obedience of taking his son up to Mount Moriah and offering him up as a sacrifice, he had moments where he didn't know if God's word would ever come to pass. He didn't know if he was really ever going to come up with, if God was ever really going to give him a son or a daughter. He didn't know if God was ever going to meet him where he was. He created backup plans. I mean, as we're getting ready to see, his wife, Sarai, pushes him to sleep with her servant Hagar. So then he fathers Ishmael out of wedlock, and they vanished. But that's not his direct child between him and his wife. That's the child they made because they couldn't see God moving. How many of us are moving ahead of time and trying to move ahead of God and trying to establish our ways instead of waiting for the ways that God has already ordered in front of you? Instead of waiting to step into the steps that God has ordered in front of you. How many of us have plan B, C, D, all the way through Z prepared in case God don't come through? We're already building our own ideas of what it should look like, how it should go, how it should move. Instead of waiting for God to show up and do what he does best, the impossible. How can we let God do what he needs to do if we get in the way? We keep saying God is not working on our behalf when he is, but we are in the way. And sometimes he just needs us to move out the way. We try to do these things in our own strength, and we need to move out the way. Abram was 99 years old, and the Lord appeared to him and said to him, I am God Almighty. Walk before me and be blameless, that I may make my covenant between me and you and may multiply you greatly. Then Abram fell on his face, and God said to him, Behold, my covenant is with you, and you shall be the father of a multitude of nations. No longer shall your name be called Abram, but your name shall be Abraham, for I have made you the father of a multitude of nations. So he went from Abram, which means father exalted, and he went to Abraham, which means father of many nations. God will change your name if you would just stay the course. He will change your garments if you will just stay the course. He will change your territory. He will change your responsibilities. He will change your assignments. He will make the change for you if you just stay the course. You don't know what the blessing is on the other side. You don't know what he desires for you. You don't know what the output is going to be, but just stay the course. I'm talking to myself because as difficult as it gets, as hard as it can be, as frustrating as it can be, as challenging as it can get, it's easier to look forward than to look backwards. It's easier to keep pressing on than to double back and try to go forward again. It's easier to keep your eyes stayed on heavenly things and in heavenly places so that all his righteousness can be added unto you. It is easier to look to God than to deal with the devil, than to deal with the world, than to deal with the flesh. What do you look like going back to what you came from? What do you look like going back? I forget the scripture that talks about when a dog vomits. Like, do you want to be like a dog that goes back to its own vomit? No. I know that it's difficult to believe God sometimes, and I'm talking to myself once again. It's difficult to believe God sometimes, but we have to hold on to the promise. Abraham got the same promise 3, 4, 5 times. I'm going to make you a nation. I'm going to give you offspring, like as the amount of dust on the earth. God promised him over and over and reminded him over and over and over again. And sometimes that's what we need. We need to remind ourselves of the word, remind ourselves of the promise, and hold on to it. Take it to God in prayer. Press into him in prayer. And don't let go of it. So now when Sarah births Isaac, I was going to say Isaac. That's a whole nother conversation. When Sarah births Isaac, God puts Abraham to the test. All right, this is the story we all know about. He has him take Isaac to Mount Moriah and offer him up as a sacrifice. So as they're journeying, he has 2 young men with him, his son and himself. And on the 3rd day, they tell the 2 young men to stay back, and he can see the space and the place that God told him to go to take his son, to offer him up to him. So him and his son, they pack up the wood, they pack up the knives and all of that stuff, and they go, the fire and everything, and they go to the mountaintop, Mount Moriah. They get up there, and the son is like, where's the lamb that we're going to offer? Like, what's going on? And he's like, oh, God will provide. And he's preparing the space, and he's laying down the wood, and then he puts his son down on the wood and ties him down, pulls out the knife, and he gets ready to shank him, gets ready to slit his throat. And God's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. He's like, Abraham, wait, hold up. Time out. And God says to him, do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him. For now I know that you fear God, seeing you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. This reminds me of the scripture, train up a child in the way that they should go, and they won't depart from it. When you have children, they're not your own. You train them up, you develop them, you give them the tools they need. You establish them in their purpose, right? You help them find their way in their purpose. If they're a little prophet, you teach them things about the gift of prophecy. You teach them things about the office of prophecy, how prophets are treated, how people, deal with them, how they handle them, how they handle giving people prophetic words, etc., etc. You develop them along with God, and you mold them so that when they grow up, even if they decide to backslide, That is rooted in them. But once they come out of being a child, they are God's and no longer yours. You become partners with them. I learned that this weekend. Game Changers Conference. You become partners with your children. And they have their own relationship with God. No longer are you parent child. Now it's partners in the kingdom of God. So when Abram was going to go offer up Isaac, he was probably like, look, God got me this far. God gave me you. Even when I forced his hand and created my own child out of wedlock, he still favored me. He still desired a covenant with me. He still desired to even keep that covenant with me. And if he wants you, he can have you. Right? Some of us, it wouldn't be that simple. But we don't know what was going through Abram's mind at the time. But it made me think, and I go, do we reverence God enough? Do we have 1 ounce of reverential fear in us? When we look at Abraham's relationship with God, we see that he promised him land, people, and blessings. And in his obedience and willingness to move from his hometown to the new land, it opened up opportunities and covenants that may not have been received otherwise if he would have stayed where he was. God wants to establish you, but what have you not done as of yet? What have you not moved on as of yet? Whether it's you actually transitioning and moving from one place to another, whether it's you writing a book, a screenplay, you preparing a course, whatever it is, a masterclass, the conference, whatever it is, mentorship group. If you haven't done it, get on it, because God wants to establish you. He established Abraham when he picked up and left and went to the place that he called him to. Will you allow him to establish you today? He gave him people, right? He kept telling him, you're going to have many, many, many offspring. You're going to have many, many people. You're going to have many, 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 as many as the stars that you can count, as many as the dust. Well, more than really the stars that you can count, more than the dust that you can count on the earth. Because God would bless him with many offsprings. Do you see how long he had to wait for his first child? Dust. My man was dust. Old. And he still was blessed with many, many. Because you are an offspring of Abram. I'm here to tell you, if you didn't know, you are an offspring of Abraham. He was blessed with many, many, many children. Why, when we don't see the promise happening, we want to jump ship? I don't know. Maybe because we feel as if we can do better. But then you wouldn't need God. And then where would you be? God also promised him blessings. And because of his consistency and obedience, God knew he can trust him. Can God trust you? Can God trust you? We already know he's going to be faithful to us and that we will not always be faithful to him. But can he trust you? He trusted Abraham. Because even when Abraham had to go and at one point he prayed and interceded for Sodom and Gomorrah. God was like, almost like, I'll honor your request because you're the one interceding. He trusts him. He trusted him with his son. He trusted him with his wife. He trusted him to take them from one land to another. He trusted him. And in response to Abraham's response to God was always establishing an altar. Can God trust you? Or does he always have to fight you tooth and nail? Or does he always have to reprimand you or correct you or sit you down? Can God trust you? Some of us want these big positions like Abraham. Some of us want to be the mother in Zion and the father of many nations and big prophet, and I need a platform, and etc., etc. But can God trust you? If he can't trust you, he will not give you a platform. If he cannot trust you, he will not make you mother in Zion. He will not make you big name prophet. He won't. Some of that stuff will crush you. It's not even built for you. It's not even built. You're not built for it, I should say. You are not built for it. You're just not. You're either not ready or it's not for you. So think about your relationship as it is with God and how you operate in God. Right? Stay in a place of humility. Stay and walk in obedience. We all know the scripture, obedience is better than sacrifice. Walk in obedience. Walk in humility. Right? We want to receive the blessings of God. We want to remain in covenant with God. We don't want to be the one that he says, turn from me, I don't know you. But we have to follow the little steps. If we can be rulers over the little, he will make us rulers over much. We have to handle the little, the assignments, the tasks, the things that seem minuscule. We have to be obedient to those things. We have to be obedient and humble in the assignments that feel dirty. Like, even if he calls you to clean the church bathroom, if he calls you to be an admin to a pastor, if he calls you to be a lay leader or be on the board, something that's taxing, you need to be obedient and do it in humility. You may not like it, you may not enjoy it, but walk it out. You don't know what the output is. You don't know what the end result is. And I'm not just here talking to you guys. I'm talking to myself. Okay? Take it from the person who at 5 told their mother, I don't ever want to be a secretary, and was in administration for 14 years. Okay? Take it from me. You don't know what the output is. You don't know what's at the other end of the rainbow, if you will. So I pray that this encouraged somebody. I pray that this makes you sit and do some introspective work. Check your behavior, check your attitude, especially towards God. And he's not going to get upset. You know, he knows how we are going to react and how we're going to behave. But we gotta work on the transformation process. So study yourself. That's the purpose of this. Study yourself. Learn about you so that your relationship here can be better, so that these relationships are better. These are fruitful. So I pray that you were blessed. I pray that you're encouraged. You have a great and an awesome Saturday. We are here every Saturday for the Lord's Prayer at 6 a.m. every Saturday, Eastern Standard Time. Tell somebody.